Hi there, Claudette Chenevert, Stepmom Coach. It's been a while and I'm glad to be here. So, how have you been doing? Hopefully you've been enjoying summer and this weather. It's sort of a little crazy. Today I wanted to talk about a post that I did not too long ago. A video, in fact, that was called Before You Engage in an Argument with a Spouse. And I had someone who asked me a question, and I promised I'd answer her question about this. And her question is that when you have a spouse who purposefully does things to make you angry or to start an argument, and then claims that you're the one who's like really mean, and she used other words, and then that you're complaining all the time, and then he does things to purposefully hurt you in sort of like instigating the argument, right? And I'm sure we've all experienced people who purposefully engage us in an argument and then blames us for being the mean person or the complainer or the victim or whatever. And then she says that, he is a very angry person. He doesn't want to get any help. He's a very hard person to love. And, it's really difficult to connect with him. So, as I read her comment, I re-listened to the video, I listened, I wanted to, come with an answer. And, one of the things she mentions is that he probably had emotional issues, attachment issues, and although that may be true, it's really hard for me to diagnose. And first of all, I'm not here to diagnose anybody. That's the last thing I want to do. But the one thing that is important is to understand that we all have like a history, things that in our past has, influenced who we are today. And as she was sharing that, one of the things is that, personally, in my relationship with my husband, I was the type of person who would engage in arguments with him. And the reason for the arguments I had with him was along the lines of, I wanted to get my point across, but I also was someone who was afraid of losing a person in my life. I've went through a lot of personal losses of relationships and close people in my life. And so there's this fear of getting close to another person. Now, I'm not saying that, this is what this, what the person asked, the comments was about. But, there's a lot of different reasons. And so, although I don't know the history of this person's spouse, and there are some things that happen that are very common. One is that there's a fear of being hurt. There's a fear of trusting other people, which was one of my biggest issues when I met my husband. Trusting him that he would be there to help protect me, to be there for me. And so I tested him. I would test him a lot. And I did this with my kids as well, my stepdaughters and my son. I would test them. And I see, the bad part of that about, testing other people and starting arguments. The other thing I want to share about this, sometimes it's hard to get close to another person, especially if you're afraid of being hurt personally. So my response to the comment that this person made on this video that I did a few weeks ago is to try to respond by being less defensive. Now, I know it's easier said than done, and sometimes we say, but I'm not defensive. Just the fact that you say, I'm not defensive, you're being defensive. And it's not a question of saying who's right or wrong either. It's a matter of, what is it you want to get out of this conversation? You're having an argument. There's a reason for this argument. And so, but the end result is what? What do you want to get out of this in the end result? So if I go back to some of the arguments I had with my husband, one of the things I noticed, and I noticed this after several years, is that I would always have an argument with him just before he left to go on a business trip. And I would be alone at home with his kids and my son. And, there was this feeling of, you're leaving me, I'm going to be home, I'm all by myself, I have all of this over or extra activities or duties that I have to take care of, I'm going to miss you, and so I'm going to start an argument before you leave. This is really ridiculous to think like this, but it's not that uncommon where people will start arguments to avoid feeling sad, to avoid feeling hurt, to avoid feeling uncomfortable. The idea of starting an argument to avoid those emotions is so that you don't have to deal with those sad emotions or the emotions of being alone, of being abandoned, if that is the case. And sometimes people are just mean, and the reason they're mean, again, if there is something really hurting them. And so whenever coming to this conversation and trying to not be defensive, I know it's easier said than done, but being defensive will only escalate the problem. If you are defending yourself towards another person, the only thing it does is make it worse. Because what happens is that as soon as you start defending your position, there's this wall saying that I'm not ready to listen to what you have to say. I'm going to stick with what I'm doing. I'm going to protect myself against you, and that's it. Now, there are times we do need to defend ourselves. Like, I'm not saying we should never defend ourselves. That's not true. Especially, if someone is really attacking who you are as an individual, your person, there are moments we need to defend ourselves. So the thing is that when we defend ourselves, we do so because we feel like we're being attacked. We feel like we're being blamed for what's going on. We're not being understood. And so it just, escalates. And when we defend ourselves, it's more a reaction to what's going on rather than thinking through what's actually happening. Also, when we are defending ourselves, we're preventing ourselves from actually listening to what's happening, and it makes it really hard to find a solution to what's going on. And the other thing is that we can't not defend ourselves. We can minimize it, but it's impossible for us to really come and say, okay, in an argument, in a heated argument, to not completely defend ourselves. So the best way to do this is to approach it, with some thought, some calm, if you can do this, and obviously practice. So the first thing to do, to not be defensive is to breathe through and take some deep breaths. When you're seeing another person coming towards you and saying, hey, I told you got to do this, How many times do I have to tell you to not bother me when I'm at home and I'm sitting on a chair and I'm reading my newspaper? It's like, okay, whoa, like this is like a big blow to you, right? So this is the moment, instead of reacting, where you could say, hey, you're such a jerk, why are you talking to me like this? You can't talk to me this way, this is so stupid. This isn't going to help the situation. As you can see, it only gets worse. So take the time, take a deep breath, center yourself, and, look at what's happening. What time of day is it? What just happened before? Is he angry really at you, or is he angry at something else that happened? If I come back to myself, whenever I would come back from home from work, I'm sitting in the car. I had a really big day. I used to be a hairdresser at the time, and I would work in a very busy salon. And so I'd hear a lot of people talking and a lot of noise, and it was a really rushed, and then I'd be in traffic. So I'd get home. The last thing I wanted to hear was someone tell me, the kids didn't do this, or the kids would tell me, oh, so-and-so just, played with my stuff, or so-and-so just made me, spilled juice on my homework or whatever. Or, I would hear someone say, how come the dishes aren't done? What's for dinner? I'm hungry right now. So those are all things that, really make you want to react to being in the argument. So the one thing to do is, again, as I said, look at what's happening, look at the situation, what just happened before this argument is blowing up, So it could be, it's not about you, but about what's happening in the place. Maybe your partner, your spouse, or the kids are frustrated, they're tired, they're hungry, whatever it is. Then, look at it and say to them, I can see you're angry. I can see you're frustrated. By acknowledging what you just saw helps to diffuse some of the energy of the argument. Now, again, as I said, it's not easy, and it's not something that, will happen the first several times you do it. It may take a lot of practice. Like I said, sometimes I've been with my husband 26 years, and sometimes I even catch myself in an argument and was like, whoa, what just happened here? I reacted to what he said, or even my son or our kids. They'll say something, and all of a sudden I react. And I say, okay, whoa, just a second. What just happened here? Let's step back for a second and assess the situation. Okay, am I angry? Am I frustrated? Am I tired? Am I overwhelmed? And if it's not any of that, then look at yourself and say, okay, did I feel like he just attacked me? Did I feel like I've been demised and someone said like really mean things? Then say, okay, well, if that's the case, then say, you know what? I really don't appreciate the tone of voice you used with me. Do you mind, coming back to me with a different tone of voice? So that's a way of, helping to diffuse the argument without being defensive. The other thing is to try to practice active listening skills. Like I said, this is something that doesn't come like in the first try. It takes practice, and so maybe this is a good idea to take notes while you're listening to this, and at the same time pause, rewind, and then listen again. So things like, as I said earlier, expressing like, I see you're angry. Can I help you with something? What is happening that you're so angry at this moment? Say like, how can I help you? What is the situation about? give some space to be able to hear and listen to what's going on, so that the other person doesn't feel like he or she's being ignored, put down, or ridiculed for whatever's going on. And again, there's so many different scenarios, and it's really hard to put a one-size-fits-all type of solution, because that we're all unique. We all have different personalities and issues. And so there's different solutions, but these are some of the things that you can do to help you. The other thing that, you could say is like, I see that you're really angry, and this may not be the right time for us to have this conversation. Do you mind if we come back in an hour or half an hour and talk about it again? I know that for myself and my husband, we've had some arguments where I said, okay, no, we can't have this argument. This needs to stop now before we say things we'll regret and then are hard to take back. And so let's take a break. We'll come back in a few hours and discuss this when we're calmer. And sometimes it's hard. I'll admit that I'm the one who may not always want to take a break because I need to have my point across. But I've also learned that, if I don't take that break, if I don't cool down a little bit, then it makes my relationship with my husband that much more complicated. Now, you may say, like, why is it that I should be the one taking care of this, and why am I the person who needs to take action and do these steps? Well, one of the things I know is that when you're feeling hurt, when you're feeling that the other person isn't treating you well, you're the one that's in need, and you're realizing what's going on. Therefore, it's a good idea for you to do things to help you with this relationship, and to also to protect yourself, and that you're being heard, you're being respected. One of the things we know for sure is that you cannot change another person. Another person won't change because you ask them to. But the one thing you can do is influence them. And I think that's important, and an important distinction to do. And we influence other people by the way we behave and our reaction to them. So when someone comes to you and they're angry and they're talking in a tone of voice you don't appreciate or you don't like, this is a good time to say, hey, listen, I can see you're angry. So the first thing you're doing is you're acknowledging that they're angry. So you're not minimizing it, but you're saying, I can see you're angry. I don't feel this is the right time for us to have this conversation because you're too angry. Let's take it later in the evening when we've both calmed down and we can have a better conversation. Especially if the kids are there, this is not a time to have an argument. Calm down and have it later. And then ask yourself, what is it that you want to come from this conversation? Like, if you're really angry, if your spouse is really angry and he's rambling on about all kinds of things that's happening, ask him, so what would you like to see happen at the end of our conversation? What is it? What kind of solution can we come up with that will make this situation better? So those are just a few tips. I would love to have more conversations with you around this, and I'll be sharing more throughout, a series of, dealing with conversations, conflict, arguments, anger. And join, if you like this video, join, click on the get notifications from Facebook. Also, go to my YouTube channel and just do #StepMomCoach, and you'll be able to get more notifications on other upcoming videos. And if you like this video, please feel free to share. I'd appreciate that. And finally, if you have a comment, just put a comment below and I'd love to hear what you think. So have a great day. Thank you for the comment and the opportunity for me to respond. And I look forward to talking with you again very soon. Bye.